Hi everyone, welcome. Tonight we're going to be talking about the SOS feeding therapy program that we run here at Grace Children's Therapy. So I'll start off with an overall summary and then we'll kind of break it down into what to expect over the 12 weeks. So overall, it's a 12-week program. We follow the SOS feeding therapy model, which is what Lee and I are both trained on. SOS feeding therapy stands for Sequential oral sensory. So basically we work on a bottom-up approach, going, okay, if the first thing we need to do to eat a food is tolerate being near it, that's the bottom, and we move up through that process, engaging the children in a positive environment towards eating. So it's that model of therapy, and it involves a hierarchy of different foods. Every week we do 5 food groups, so we'll be doing proteins, grains, fruit, vegetable and dairy or dairy alternatives. We do take into account any allergens and sensitivities, and we get all that information as well so that it's all tailored to the group. We also take into account all the different types of textures of foods, the smells of foods, the colours of foods, and try and present an array, meeting the 5 food groups and meeting all the texture components we need to meet as well. So there'll be a liquid or a puree each week, so that could be anything from pureed apples through to honey, or a range of different things. And we'll also be having things that they can bite and easily maybe dissolve within a chew or two, through to some more technically challenging chewing foods that are more like your harder mechanicals that require a really big bite, pull and chew motions. So this way we get to see all sorts of different foods. The course overall, because it goes for the 12 weeks, we look at about 40 to 50 new foods that are introduced in that time. So it can be quite a lot. There's 10 on the menu each week, but some of them will repeat from week to week, and we might note them, come back to them and see what the difference is a couple of weeks later. And we also do chaining, which means we move from one food to the next food using something similar about those foods. So not only are we taking into account the food groups, the textures, we're also trying to make sure that the flow of what's being offered isn't too dissimilar. What happens is, we start off with an initial consult and we get diet history, we get a background on information on the children so that we know roughly their compatibility with the group, and we sit down and we work out some functional goals for each child. So every child will come into the program with their own set of goals. Some will be, their goal might be to eat in a group setting. Some might have a goal where it's more anxiety to new foods being presented. Others will have more oral motor goals, chewing, tongue lateralizing, those sorts of goals. Other goals can be even things like learning to drink from a drink bottle, learning to use some cutlery. There's lots of different aspects of eating, so it doesn't mean that you'll be in a group with people with the same goals. It just means that while we're doing the program, we're looking at different goals from different children. So it's a good fun exercise for the children as well. In terms of that bottom-up approach, means we are introducing foods and giving them strategies for how to move those foods up towards being eating, which means it's quite play-based. We do a lot of fun ideas to sort of engage with those foods, and we also stick to a bit of a routine. First thing you'll notice, we'll come into the gym area, we'll do some warm-ups, getting the body moving for about 15 minutes or so. We're basically looking for some regulation of their system, because basically every child will come in having a completely different day. So what we want to do is try and get the group to about somewhere where going into the feeding room is going to be a more conducive environment. So we work on different skills in here, gross motor type activities. Sometimes it's rolling balls, sometimes pushing on walls, sometimes we're getting some really big proprioceptive work happening. Yeah, it depends on the group as well and where they even are as they walk in. We're pretty quick to work out what they need from us. Once they have what they need in here and we think we're ready to transition into the feeding room, we go next door. If you looked at, or when you look out of the way out, there's a one-way mirror. So when in the feeding room, the children see the mirror, but after a few weeks, once the children are settled into the routine, parents will be invited to stand by the mirror and watch what's happening inside. And that gives you some really good insights about how it actually works and what we're doing in there as well. So in the feeding room itself, we're set up with some chairs that are designed to ensure the kids are sort of sitting 90 degrees at the back, 90 degrees at their knees, 90 degrees at their feet, so they've got footrest. We'll sometimes offer the children, depending on how their motor's running, some wobble cushions or some TheraBands to push on. They get some ways of getting some more self-regulation at the table. And we then start off with the routine of giving them their plates, their bowls, cutlery that we'll need for the day, a cup of water. Drinking out of a cup is another goal that a lot of children might have, so we always have the cup of water available. Cup of water is also used as a opt-out strategy, so if the children don't like the food that's on their plate, or they put it in their mouth and they don't like the taste, they've got the water as an opt-out to get rid of the taste. We also give them a washer as an opt-out strategy, so that if they've touched something and don't like that touch, they've got their own washer. We kind of make a bit of fun out of it and say, don't let me touch it, that's only for you, it's yours, you're in charge of that. And we give them some control over the things that they're allowed to be in control of in the room. So that they don't feel like they need to control other parts of what's happening. So they're given a lot of responsibilities in there. We then instigate going through that hierarchy and chain of the 10 foods. Some weeks we might only get to 6 of them because we're making such good progress on that 6. Other weeks we'll get through all 10 and then we might start revisiting them and kind of working backwards again through it. Each week is a little bit different. Some things that work for some groups don't always work well with the next group. So we try some different strategies to see how they're going. So I talked a little bit about that bottom-up hierarchy. Lee has a poster here. The poster kind of explains to you what we're looking at. We're looking for the children to enter somewhere with the food and get to somewhere else, and then see that progression over the 12 weeks. So if they're entering here, being able to tolerate the food in the room, and in each session they get up to touching it with their fingers, we'll look at that, and then what we're hoping to see is by the end we're moving that up closer and closer towards being eaten. Yeah, so this is that familiarity model and that bottom-up approach. So I'll pass that around so you can see. Eating isn't a pass-fail exercise. There's 32 physical steps to get the food into the mouth, let alone all the other environmental cues and their sensory systems and their own development and ability to do the tasks that we're asking them to do. So by keeping a check on all of those foods every week within that hierarchy, we start to work out some patterns and work out some strategies. And yeah, we get a lot more, get some good traction happening from that method.
Okay, so basically what we're looking at each week is, so this is an example of last week's program. We have a list of foods and those are the 32 steps, and I just marked down where they started. So for this particular individual, they picked it up and waved it around, and I managed to get her to a point of putting it into her mouth, biting it, and then spitting it all out. So, but this is towards the end, I have to say. So I'd say before, you'd see a lot of these arrows being stuck around up here, And then towards the end, you can see there she became more comfortable. She was able to just put it up to her mouth. There was no major issues, not huge ones, but it was depending on her goals. It was all about chewing or swallowing. But again, every child is different. But this is a very specific way for us to track each child. So this is done each session.
So each food, each child, each session, we get a record.
If
you're standing at the window and watching different children, you might be like, oh, that child's doing so well, but you couldn't, it's very hard to actually approximate when they might have very different goals, very different starting points. The general aim is that the science behind and the research behind this program is that 12 weeks is how long the program needs to be effective, and it also comes with parent information nights as well scattered through it, so that we can keep you in the loop about what is sort of going on at home as well. And remembering that if 1 week a child takes what seems to be a step back, it's actually probably a good sign for us to go, well, what else has happened that week? What's been going on? They could be ill, tired, bowel movements, all sorts of things actually impact their receptiveness to the program. And so that actually helps us sort of go, well, you know, it's going to be a tough day because of this. And so,
during the initial consult, it's quite clear what the goals, achievable goals within that time is. So we do try to make that quite clear. Within the 12 weeks, the parent education nights, we can see and track how well they're going. If you get feedback, it's open communication through emails if you have any questions within that time.
So for this program, what you'll see is the variety of foods around them will improve. The calorie intake isn't usually the first goal you're ticking. It's more that will happen because they are now a lot more open to new foods, variety, and know how to actually do it.
Very initial intake will let us know if they're suitable for the program. So for example, if a child aspirates quite a bit, then that wouldn't be a very good referral for the program because they're at risk of choking. So that would mean a referral to speech first before us, because we don't want any sort of negative association if they were to put something in their mouth and were to choke and gag on it.
The chaining of the 10 different foods, we look at the different textures. And all the textures come from the different stages of the developmental food continuum. So this in brackets over at the edge, don't get concerned about why it says 6 months, 8 months, that sort of thing. That's on a typically developing baby when they've got the oral motor skills to be able to eat that food. It's not necessarily applicable to every child in every situation, but it's just to give you a guideline how we like to progress, and we like to see them take on those more challenging textures. One thing you'll notice about the continuum is, you start off with things like first taste, puree, type easy foods, mashed table foods, move on to softer foods. And what if you looked at the supermarket shelf, you would see the next thing seems to be going to like a risotto, a mixed texture, all sorts of things happening in that bowl. In fact, a lot of other things have to happen in that development hierarchy before we get to mixed texture foods. So we aim at getting to mixed texture foods towards the end of the program, but remembering we're probably starting off at the beginning, looking at how well our development of oral motor skills is at the earlier stages. So we'll be doing some soft cubes, some like what we call like a dissolvable, something that we bite under our teeth and dissolve, so something like a rice bubble that we can just see, can they actually get it under their molars, can they crunch on it. So the first couple of weeks you might think, oh, these foods are a bit easy, but the easy foods are because we actually want to get a good baseline for what's happening when we see the different things, because if we go and start going, here's your risotto first up, everyone's had a bit of a giggle. You're like, that wouldn't work, would it? So, the risottos and that are actually quite challenging from a sensory point of view. And you have one bite, you get a big pea, the next bite, you get something else, and like, what is going on in this meal? I've got to keep learning about that food every mouthful I'm taking. And it's a lot of hard work for kids to do all that learning with every food. So we do start off with some of the easier learn foods, just to see where they're at as well. But we do try to get through everywhere on that hierarchy so that we have a good idea about what to do and give them the strategies for how to work, sort of work through getting up there themselves. And we're equipping them with the strategies to know what to do, rather than, so we want them to be able to walk out and not have me saying, oh, look at it with your eyes, look at it with your eyes. By the time I get to the end, Lee and I are barely talking. But at the beginning it's like, do they ever shut up? But yeah, we're trying to get into their monologue and give them those strategies so that they go, okay, first thing I'm going to do is just look at it with my eyes. That's not hard, I can do that. Next thing I'm going to do is I might touch it, I might, have a smell. Okay, that was a bit overwhelming, I'll come back to that again. Letting them know that they can do all that, and it's not just as easy as just take a bite, because it's never just take a bite. So that's part of why we do the exercise, to try and get them at a space where they're going to be able to learn in there and give us as much information on their root cause as to why the food refusals might be happening, and also, like I said, giving them strategies so they know that we don't throw food in there, so we give them nice positive reinforcements about why we don't throw food, why we sit at our chair, why we do the things we do, and also feedback to you which language tools are working for us in there. Sometimes we have to do physical prompt, like showing them the washer or handing them the washer each time at the beginning. And what you'll notice is we go from giving them the physical prompt to just go, now your washer, until they're doing it themselves. So that's our aim, is to move from giving them lots of physical coaching on how to enact these strategies through to we just sit back and eat at the end.
So with the parent nights, there's 3 of them scheduled within the program. You'll get this book here for each family. We'll go through this in the parent nights, so don't be too fussed about reading it all to yourself. So we'll tell you which ones to work on or what to do at home. The first initial weeks will just be getting them used to the routine, getting to meet us, being brought here, and then we'll be able to talk to you about what to do at home, because as soon as you start doing things straight away at home, they kind of sense it and you see the resistance straight away. So you just want it to be like an easy, positive, and go, oh, okay, then so they kind of expect it, rather than a really big change.